Tonight we'll be looking at the first path factor, right view. And as I said, the Buddha puts them in this order. This is the order they've been handed down to us. Right view first. But in many ways, the path is better organized with morality first. So when we call this the first path factor, in some ways it is the first path factor to arise, because you need some sort of right view to actually cultivate morality. But in most understandable ways of understanding the Eightfold Noble Path, we put morality first. You need morality before you can develop concentration, and you need concentration or focus before you can cultivate wisdom, which is right view. So right view belongs to the wisdom category. That being said, we develop all of them in tandem, sometimes with a greater focus on one than another, but they go together. And if they don't go together, they're not right at all. Something I didn't mention yesterday, which probably should have gone with that talk, is all of these factors depend on each other. So if you have only one of them, it's not right. These are only right view, right thought, and so on when they all come together. And that should have been clear by what I said, but it's important to think of. You can't just develop one of them without cultivating the others. If you're lacking in any one of these, you're never going to make it. Oh, anyway, right view. So before we talk about right view, we have to talk about view. View is it's probably the most important, especially for a newcomer to Buddhism, most important aspects of Buddhism to understand. Wrong view. Wrong view is the big problem. But the Buddha would talk about wrong view, but he often just talked about views. So rather than say right or wrong, he made this distinction between seeing things clearly and having a belief. He was quite against the reliance upon belief. He said, if you say, I believe X, what you're doing is protecting the truth. He called this protecting the truth. Why are you protecting the truth? Because, unless you're lying about that, it really is true. You do believe X. Unless you're joking and say, I believe the world is flat, or that kind of thing. But if you actually believe it, then saying, I believe X is true. It's a true statement. But it has nothing to do with the truth, in the sense of the content of your statement. The truth of X. Right? I believe X. I believe such and such. A statement, such and such a reality. I believe in God. Well, okay, that's true. You do believe in God. It says nothing about whether God exists. And I think we miss this. You hear this a lot, where people say, well, I believe such and such. And it's really a fairly meaningless statement in terms of the truth of it, in terms of what is true, right? It's interesting to know, if you believe in God, then it's interesting for me to know that you believe in God. As a Buddhist, it doesn't mean much to us. It's not something that impresses us. But okay, so you believe X. The Buddha said only if you then say X is true, then you've got a challenge. You need some evidence, and you're opening yourself up to the potential of being wrong. What you say might be wrong. And that's where wrong view comes in, of course. When your beliefs turn out to be out of line with reality. And that's, I mean, it should go without saying that that's important. But we tend not to focus on that aspect. We're less concerned about whether our beliefs are actually in line with reality, and simply whether I believe them. Because we tend to think it's not possible to know. How could you know whether God exists? I don't know. I don't think it's possible to know whether God exists. Except insofar, I'll talk a little bit about that later maybe. But because we think you can't know these things, then it's all just up to belief now, isn't it? And so that's an important point. That yes, it's really bad when your beliefs are out of line with reality. But even before that, there's a sense that there's something wrong with holding a belief at all, depending upon beliefs, right? Not even bothering to find out whether it's true or not. Of course, it's a problem when it turns out not to be true, or if it turns out not to be true. But it turns out to be also a problem for people who have right view. If you have quote-unquote right view, and again, it's not right view according to the Eightfold Noble Path, because it's not connected with the other 7 path factors. But if you have read much of the Buddha's teaching, and you believe, to the best of your ability, in the Buddha's teaching, in the things that the Buddha's taught, yes, I believe what the Buddha taught, well, then you have right view, right? In the sense that the view that you have, the belief that you have, is in line with the Buddha's teaching. It's not right view, in the sense, it's not noble right view. And it's a problem, it's a big problem. Because by relying on that, you blind yourself to the, you close yourself off to the observation, to the investigation of what the truth is. You already know the truth. This happens, it's common for Buddhists to already know what is true. They do a lot of studying, a lot of reading. And they already know, the Four Noble Truths. Everybody knows the Four Noble Truths, right? It's humbling to think that this thing right in front of us on the page, these Four Noble Truths that I've been talking about, not very hard to understand. But simply understanding, if we really understood these, we'd be enlightened. That's all that's standing in the way. That's all that's standing between us and enlightenment, is these 4 truths that we already know. Right? But it happens often that Buddhists who know these things aren't so inclined to meditate. They already know. Why would I need to meditate to find those things out? I already know what those are. So it's only through meditation that we realize, I didn't really know. What I had was view. What I had was views. So right view, in a sense, is the giving up of views. Right view is a view that is based on knowledge. It's based on experience. It's based on seeing. We're talking about the Four Noble Truths. Right view is seeing the Four Noble Truths. Seeing the truth of suffering. So when we talk about insight practice, or the practice of mindfulness to cultivate insight, this is what we're doing, is we're trying to understand, we're trying to see the truth. As you see that the things that you thought were stable, satisfying, controllable, you're watching your thoughts, you're watching your emotions, you're watching your feelings, watching your movements of your body. And these things that you thought were stable, satisfying, controllable turn out to be impermanent, unsatisfying, uncontrollable. unpredictable, unmanageable. And you start to come closer to seeing the truth of suffering, until finally, after some time, it's like an epiphany. It just hits you. It's true. Everything that arises ceases. All formations are unsatisfying, are in a sense stressful just because they arise. So it's very important. I mean, it's not a complicated teaching. Of course, the right view is knowledge of the Four Noble Truths. So if we were to really give a talk on right view, it would include talking about the Four Noble Truths. You see, so this is how it all folds back into each other. I talked about the Four Noble Truths already, so we don't have to go into detail about that. But it's very important, this teaching on views. What we mean by right view is not just I believe in the Four Noble Truths. It's not at all. The concept of right view is very important to understand. That it's not right view to believe something. That's view. And views are no good. And not no good. In fact, they are good, but they're insufficient. They're insufficient, and even right views can get in the way of finding right view. When we first start to meditate, though, it's very important to have right view. Right view, in the sense, we need two terms for these. Mundane right view. So when we talk about noble right view, that's what we mean by, that's what the topic is tonight. But when we talk about mundane right view, it is important to have it when you begin to meditate. It is in many ways easier for Buddhists to meditate, because they already, in many cases, have a sense of the nature of reality. If you believe in a soul, a self, then when you sit down to meditate, you think this body is myself. You believe it. You know, that's how you approach the meditation. If you believe in God, and how are you going to gain some sense of independence and responsibility? Beliefs, they get in the way, and if you don't believe in karma, it's not so bad. The worst is if you believe in self, in the sense of this body being a self. And so the first thing that goes in the meditation, the first hurdle that you have to cross, is making this paradigm shift from seeing this body as an entity, and even the mind as a soul, as an entity, to seeing that what really exists is experiences arising and ceasing. So you have to take a phenomenological perspective on reality. It doesn't matter whether this body exists in an abstract conceptual sense. It only matters what can be experienced, right? There's something special about experience, is the point. Beliefs and views and ideas and concepts, these are all inferior in the sense of true and real to actual experience. Actual experience is undeniable, right? This is Descartes came to this. Really, I appreciate Descartes for this. Cogito ergo sum. I always thought it was kind of silly. I said, well, you know, that's a belief in a self, isn't it? And probably he did believe in a soul and a self, but he came up with something quite, well, reasonable. It was clear that he actually was, in a way, meditating. It's a very mundane realization, but it's important. You know, maybe he was a Buddhist in a past life and just didn't get far enough, and so when he came back as Descartes, he still had this. It's quite possible. In the past life he might have been a monk or something. But, you know, we get off track. He never became enlightened, so he instead became Christian and went on to become a philosopher and maybe did bad things as well. It's not because you're a Buddhist and do some meditation you're going to be good forever. But Descartes was onto something. He saw it. He realized it. He realized, hey, no matter what I might be wrong about, I can't be wrong about the fact that I'm cognizing. Because I have to cognize in order to be wrong, right? Cognition is right, consciousness is undeniable. I mean, sure, you can deny it. You can deny anything. I deny that I'm conscious. Yes, but it's meaningless. We're conscious. It's questioning that is just foolish. You can question whether this body exists, right? I could be a brain in a vat, being fed stimuli that make me think there's a body sitting here. That's possible because it's abstract. But I can't be tricked into thinking I'm conscious. That's just, it's nonsense to think that. So that's the important distinction. That's where right view begins. When you begin to move away from I believe that and this is this, that is that, to just seeing things as they are. Right? It's quite powerful, and it's something that we would normally think is beyond us. Hey, seeing things as they are, how do you do that? Right? It's wonderful. We have this here. This is what is so incredible about the Buddha, is we have this path. You want to know how to see things as they are? You don't have to believe me. You don't have to listen to me. Here you go. Be mindful. Guaranteed, without doubt, you will see things as they are. You'll become independent. You won't require any belief in anyone or anything. So, that's the idea of right view. That's number one.